Now turns to Part 3.
Part 3.
You will hear a conversation between John Watson and several environmental science students.
First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce our guest to you, John Watson. We're delighted to have John with us today to share his views on conservation. As environmental science students, I know you'll have a lot of questions. So let's kick off by asking him to tell us how he got involved in the environmental movement.
Thank you, Deborah. It's nice to be here. When I was 7 years old, back in the 1940s, my father bought 200 acres of land on the central coast of New South Wales in eastern Australia. The marvellous thing about it was that it was virgin bush. In other words, completely natural. But this kind of country doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Well, let me explain. We went to live there when I was 10. When I was 12, the foxes and cats appeared, and by the time I was 14, there were no native animals left.
You mean that within 4 years, all the native animals had gone?
That's exactly what I mean. But it took a while for people to realize what was going on. So you're saying that it was the cat and the fox that killed off the native animals? Absolutely right. But back in the 1970s, people didn't realize it. Even though Australia was losing wildlife faster than the rest of the world combined, people were blaming the farmers and miners, but not their lovely little pussycats.
They're domestic cats you're talking about?
Exactly.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
What's more, they didn't want to know.
Can you tell us how you set about proving your theory that it was feral cats and foxes which were killing native animals?
Well, I moved to South Australia specifically to set up a wildlife sanctuary there.
Why South Australia in particular?
I chose South Australia because it was the only state where it was still legal for me to fence off an area and put back locally extinct animals.
That was very far-sighted of them, wasn't it?
Well, not exactly. They just hadn't got around to making it illegal, though they soon tried to once they realised what I was doing.
Did you ever get into trouble for your actions?
Yes, once or twice. In 1976, they put me in jail for cutting down some pine trees to allow me to build a fence to keep out the cats and foxes.
How did you get out of that situation?
Well, I signed an agreement saying that I wouldn't go on building the sanctuary, but then I just kept on building it.
That was very brave of you.
Well, I figured that I had signed under duress, so I didn't feel bound by it. The sanctuary was completed in 1983 and opened to the public in 1985, and within a year it was overrun with native animals.
There are other ways of protecting endangered animals, though, aren't there? You can raise public awareness through research and educational programs.
Well, I don't have much time for that. Unfortunately, today we measure success in science, not by your results, but by how much funding you get. What you've done is obviously admirable. But don't you think there's an argument for letting nature take its course? I mean, don't you think cats and foxes have a right to live too? Well, no, not really. They were introduced to this country, but they don't belong here. But aren't you trying to turn back the clock? These other animals are here now. What is so important to you about native species that justifies killing any number of alien ones? I believe that evolution gave us a paradise, and that we will lose everything unless we understand the need for balance. But really, at the end of the day, it's just a belief. It's just a feeling.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Hi, this is IELTS Bob. I would very much appreciate it if you could like, subscribe and share this video, as this will enable me to help more IELTS students reach their IELTS goals. Very much appreciated. Thank you.